I grew up in Raceland, but I grew up in the part of Raceland that's called number 4. It's the number 4 pump district is the reason why. It's on Eagle Island Road. It was 19,500 acres. 4,500 acres was highland. The rest was swamp. We had no boundaries as so say living in a city or nothing like that. And it was a little bit of a different lifestyle of what most kids grow up in. My dad ran cattle, so on weekends for fun, what we did is we penned cattle. We penned cattle for ourselves. At that time, my dad ran about 1,000 head of cattle on there for a guy. And then plus all the people that would come help us on the weekends, we would go help them. So we was constantly penning cows, working cows, riding horses. And at that time, we threw calves by hand. So you kind of had to be a pretty tough kid to grab a 300-pound calf around the neck. It was easy to be a cowboy back then, the way I grew up. And of course, every time you'd let a calf up, they would always make the young kids jump on them with no rope on them or nothing like that, just to get bucked off. I mean, I think that's what really started our rodeo careers. We realized that we rode them with nothing for 4 or 5 jumps. Then, boy, if we can go ahead and put a rope on them and stay on them, then we could stay on them for 8 seconds and maybe win a little bit of money. I started riding when I was about 10 years old. So we rode calves and we rode steers. This preceded the high school rodeo and all of that stuff. So I was riding back then, and my brothers would go to rodeos and they would have a junior bull riding. And so I'd jump in with my brothers. Central did have a very good ag program. Mr. Harvey Robichaux ran it. And he was a comedian. He was one of my best teachers I had. I was on a judging team, the livestock judging team for FFA there at Central. You have a dream. All young kids have a dream. And I've always dreamed of if I can qualify for the national finals one time was a big dream of mine. My brothers and my friends that I rodeoed around, they become my heroes first. We watched the national finals on TV. You know, we had the heroes of Donnie Gay, the 8-time world champion bull rider. I specialized in bull riding at the end of my career, but starting off in high school rodeo, I rode bulls, I rode saddle broncs, I calf roped, and I team roped. As I transitioned into college, I rode bulls, I rode saddle broncs, I team roped, and I still wrestled. I didn't calf rope because that's a lot of work taking care of a horse just to calf rope. My older brother went to McNeese 2 years prior to me. I had some other offers in the panhandle of Oklahoma. You have to remember back then, I was from Raceland, and it's a small little town, and it's hard to get out of Raceland. And my only chance to get out of Raceland was my high school rodeo years. And there's a man named Edward Lee Kinney that did our high school rodeos that lived about 10 miles from McNeese. He was almost like a second daddy. My rookie year going into McNeese, I was not scared. I had no fear. My goals superseded my fears. So I was Rookie of the Nation. And the Rookie of the Nation consists of the cumulative points, overall points. So at that time when I won Rookie of the Nation, I ended up second in the nation in the bull riding at the College National Finals in Bozeman. And I also went into the short go at the College National Finals in the saddle bronc riding. So at that time I was still a dual competitive in the bull riding and in the bronc riding. And look, I beat some guys that's pretty famous today. In contention was Tough Hedeman at 1 second, which is one of the greatest bull riders to live. It's a really big honor to have been inducted into the McNeese Hall of Fame. The rodeo team wasn't recognized at the same level as the football team and the basketball teams and all, and still isn't today. The rodeo team probably is one of the most successful sports of McNeese. To be able to go into the pro league, the PRCA, and compete for really good prize money and make it a living, it wasn't that hard of a transition for me. The difference between the PRCA and the PBR is the PRCA has 7 different events. It has bareback, saddle bronc, bull riding, calf roping, team roping, steer wrestling, and bow racing. PBR is professional bull riders. It's focused strictly on the bull riders. And it's bull riding only. We have no other events but bull riding competition. As I moved into my pro career, I rode bulls and saddle broncs and dropped the rope in. It's tough to do multi-events in the PRCA for the simple fact that the PRCA has not figured out a system to where they can put you out, if you're a multi-event guys, to put you out in both events the same night. I decided to specialize in bull riding. I felt like my bull riding was a little stronger than my saddle bronc riding, and it's way cooler to be a bull rider than a bronc rider, maybe. That's my thought sometimes. At that time, there was a lot of talk in the PRCA amongst bull riders, and there was talk about starting out on bull riding, players union, association. We wasn't really sure how we wanted to do it. Union came up, you know, and so there was 11 of us guys that sat down in the motel room in Scottsdale, Arizona, that committed and put up our own money at the time, that committed to try to start a bull riding association. Winning the PBR title was more prestigious than the PRCA title from the very first finals that we had in 1994. You had the 45 best bull riders in the PBR, so if you rode it on the PRCA, you didn't have to compete against them 45 guys. So it made the PRCA a little bit weaker at the time. We hired a guy named Randy Bernard that was a phenomenal marketer. He was a visionary, and one that still today is one of the greatest visionaries that PBR has ever come about. Since then, he's been in IndyCar. Right now, he works for Garth Brooks, which also has Ghost Tunes, which is kind of a throw off of iTunes and stuff like that. The big money was in the PBR. So everybody that rode bulls good enough to make a living at riding bulls wanted to be part of the PBR because they had that $1 million world championship bonus at the end of the rainbow. When we went there with the PRCA finals with our jackets, they wanted to fine us if we wore the PBR jackets. They were pretty upset that we started something because the PRCA never had any competition to that level. I rodeoed in the PRCA from '87 until I bought my card in '97, but I never went to one. I continued rodeoing, but through the PBR until '99. I made the national finals 7 times, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, came back 95 and 96. 96 collectively between the PRCA and the PBR, and both individually was probably my best years in both of them. It just worked. The math worked. I was maturing. I was on the older side as being a bull rider, but I was also maturing at the right time. I guess the only thing I can say is I'm like fine wine. I get better with age as it goes. That's a common question that a lot of people ask. What's the meanest bull you got on? We didn't look at it that way as bull riders. We didn't look at the meanest. Meanness didn't matter to us. Temperament didn't matter at all. Just how ranked they were. When we talk about a ranked bull, we're talking about how high he bucks, how much intensity he has when he does buck, and how many times he changes the direction. When a bull's spinning, he's constantly changing direction. The only thing you have to remember when you get on the mean bull is you can't lay there on the ground. It's not like any other sport. It doesn't matter how bad you hurt. You have to get off the ground or you're gonna get hurt worse. In my career, I was very fortunate not to have very many injuries. And my worst injury was 1992 at the national finals. I think it was the second go around. I drew a bull from Canada called Sugar Ray, and he flipped me over his head and tore my PCL and my meniscus. So I said, I'm gonna try to get back on in the 5th round. And when I did get back on that bull in the 5th round, the first jump out there when I really caught a hold with my left leg, it felt like he yanked the bottom of my leg off from my knee on down. That would be other than some bumps and bruises, I never had a broken bone in my life, maybe a broken nose, not necessarily contributed to bull riding, but maybe other things, but never had any major injuries other than that one injury.
Most of my career as a nurse was in orthopedics and sports medicine, so there's kind of a scary part about it, but there's also a part that David reassures me through Shea. I wasn't a part of David's life when he was doing the sport himself. I don't think I could have had thick enough skin to be a part of his life at that time. But for Shea, he kind of grounds me in his philosophies of how they got through their injuries back then. And modern day medicine, he's the one that kind of helps balance me off, because honestly, today's modern orthopedic medicine and sports medicine, I think is really, really good for certain things. But when I'm on the fence, I default to David's way of how they used to take care of injuries. I mean, he didn't speak to it, but you know, as far as tough goes, I mean, he's sutured his own chin together in the back of a moving vehicle before. You know, they used to super glue things, and I mean, he's perfectly healthy, and at his age, I mean, he defies all logic on how well he's put together considering what he did as a sport.
I'd be, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years old, and he'd drag me around. I mean, I was probably the only kid that got to get checked out of school, catch an airplane and fly to Chicago or fly to wherever the event was that weekend, and I would just follow him around. And so I grew up around rodeo and around his people, to where I was able to understand a lot about him and a lot about the level that he rode.
I retired at the age of 36. You're an old man at riding bulls. Might not be an old man in life, but you're an old man for a bull rider. I was mentally drained at that time, and physically, I knew I was on the backside of my career. So I knew in the back of my mind that if I kept going, I was going to get hurt. Having a son that rodeos on a professional level right now, it's harder than you rodeoing yourself. I've taken Shea to a level I felt at one time, and then he went to college and his rodeo coach took him to another level. It's much easier when you can talk to someone that understands what you go through. So a lot of times Shea and I'll still talk. It's harder on me because to watch your son, it's a very proud moment. But it's different because there's only so much you can do.
He never pushed me to rodeo, even though he rodeoed. It's what I wanted to do since I was a little kid, but he always held me back in a sense that he wanted to let my body develop and be strong enough to be able to handle, you know, the intensity and the impact that it takes. I don't know why I wasn't stronger in the bull riding. I have all the genetics to be a bull rider. I don't know. Just when it got to the professional level and things get expensive, you gravitate to which one's paying you, I guess is what you say. So I was strong in the bronc riding, and that's where I went, and I don't regret it. I love it. I disagree with him. I think bronc riding's cooler. I mean, obviously, it's the classic event. That is what cowboys are, is, you know, bronc riders.
I had the opportunity to be a stunt double in 8 seconds, and also a stunt double in Cowboy Up. I stunt doubled for Luke Perry, which you can't tell it's me because they dressed me up like him. Cowboy Up, they approached me to do some stunt doubles for Kiefer Sutherland and Marcus Thomas. Doing the run scene for Cowboy Up was adrenaline rush like riding bulls. The bull's head hit the fence and the cameraman flew back. So I just got down off the fence and asked them to see if that was close enough or they want to do it again. And they were freaking out at the time, going, no, that's good, that's good.
The documentary of the PBR, which is called This Is Not a Rodeo. And it was a red carpet event, and there were people coming from everywhere. And this one lady said that she was been following him since he was at McNeese. I thought she was gonna faint. This was an older lady, and I was like, okay, this is a big old deal. But then when you go to Raceland or Thibodaux or somewheres in, you know, the area that we reside, you know, he's just, nobody knows anything. You didn't even know anything, Stan, about who he was and how accomplished he was.
I got to meet a lot of nice people along the way. A lot of cool, very high-profile people. Got to meet George Strait. I got to meet Kix Brooks, Ronnie Dunn. Also got to meet the President of the United States. Got to meet George Bush Sr. I also got to meet Ted Nugent one night.
He embodies the Cajun spirit and heritage, and it's almost a primal-like part of his personality that he loves. and he doesn't do anything that's not very passionate, whether it's working in his garden, training his dog, putting his boot on. Everything is like 150,000%. Very few people know how grounded he is in his spirituality and what his relationship is with God.
I don't think there's any regrets. I don't believe living in the past changes the future. Things I could have did better? Of course, man. You watch these athletes now. They work out every day. They're more fit. As far as physically, I could have probably did better. Mentally, I think I was in the right frame of mind. No regrets. I can't change the past. I can only change the future.